this computer. More record to cloud. Okay, let's see here. Live streaming. And of course, I don't have my.
Uh-oh.
No, I don't know if the other's going or not. Y'all give me a second.
Something keeps clicking in or a bell gone off.
That's Pam.
There's Pam.
Pam just joined us.
I'm continuously having these connection problems with this
Honey, you work on your computer all day.
Macintosh. It's the Macintosh, dear.
I'm not going to say
Sure.
anything because I'm an Apple man, so.
Yeah, they're good.
Hello, Pam.
Hi.
How
Welcome,
did you do today? What'd you do today? We're not online. Well, we're being recorded, but we're not online yet.
Well, I worked and then I went to my dentist and I am back.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why don't you do like I do, have dentures, and you just send the teeth off.
Just mail them off, huh?
Another life.
Huh? Well, there's Diane, I think. I think she joined us.
You got your everything set up? I hope they work. Can you hear everybody?
There's Diane.
Okay.
Hey, Diane.
Hey.
Yeah, we could hear Diane.
Yeah, there's
Can y'all hear
Diane.
me?
We can hear you.
Okay.
I think
By
it's
the way, I really enjoyed the number 16.
Oh, did you? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Roger, I'm going to have to give you a different email address or something because I'm not getting them.
Okay.
And so,
Shoot it over to me when you have time. Let me introduce myself here real quick. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Roger Paul, and tonight we're going to continue our study with paper 139, the 12 apostles. We're in section 6, Honest Nathaniel, and that starts on page 1558.2 in the original book, or paper 139, 6-1, and all the rest. So that's where we are to get started here. And everybody else is connected and everything's cool, right?
Yeah, all systems go.
Okay. We'll see if Diane gives us feedback when actually once you start to read there.
Okay.
6. Honest Nathaniel. Nathaniel, the sixth and last of the apostles to be chosen by the Master himself, was brought to Jesus by his friend Philip. He had been associated in several business enterprises with Philip, and with him was on the way down to see John the Baptist when they encountered Jesus.
Okay, so y'all remember the story that Philip was going to meet Nathaniel coming from John the Baptist, and that's when they ran into Jesus. So that's how this happened. And let's see, we're in. Boy, this is really weird because of the way it's rearranged. Gary, I think you're up next. Then the way I got it on my screen.
okay. When Nathaniel joined the apostles, he was 25 years old and was the next to the youngest of the group. He was the youngest of a family of 7, was unmarried, and the only support of aged and infirmed parents, with whom he lived at Cana. His brothers and sisters were either married or deceased, and none lived there. Nathanael and Judas Iscariot were the 2 best educated men among the 12. Nathanael had thought to become a merchant.
Okay, so Nathaniel actually was going to be a merchant as a way to make a living. All right. Let me see if I can take these off and still say, yeah. Okay. I'm next, I think. Jesus did not himself give Nathanael a nickname, but the 12 soon began to speak of him in the terms that signify honesty and sincerity. He was without guile, and this was his great virtue. He was both honest and sincere. The weakness of his character was his pride. He was very proud of his family, his city, his reputation, and his nation, of all of which was commendable if it is not carried too far. But Nathaniel was inclined to go to extremes with his personal prejudices. He was disposed to prejudge individuals in accordance with his personal opinions. He was not slow to ask the question, even before he had met Jesus, can anything good thing come out of Nazareth? He was quick to reverse himself when he once looked into Jesus's face. All right, so as soon as he met Jesus, he realized that Jesus was something special, right? Okay. Y'all, let me mention this at this point before I forget tonight. I've been making shorts out of our meetings. You know what shorts are?
Yes.
Okay. So when y'all read, if you don't have your camera on, it just shows a black screen on the shorts and people won't click on it, even if it's got your name on it. So I just wanted to mention that. The ones with Letch this week, I went ahead and put out, but I'm getting no views on them at all. So just want to let y'all know. So make sure you keep your cameras on, okay, for me, so that the shorts look good. The shorts are really coming out good. We're getting more views of the shorts than we do the actual videos. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Shorts is where
yeah.
it's at.
Yeah, so it's working pretty good. So I've been making shorts out of each one of our meetings. I made a bunch of them today. So okay. So I don't want to be short with you, but
Okay. We
That's
got
the
that.
fact.
okay. Rodney, I think you're up next.
Okay. In many respects, Nathaniel was the odd genius of the 12. He was the apostolic philosopher and dreamer. He was a very practical sort of dreamer. He alternated between seasons of profound philosophy and periods of rare and droll humor. When in the proper mood, he was probably the best storyteller among the 12. Jesus greatly enjoyed hearing Nathanael discourse on things both serious and frivolous. Nathanael progressively took Jesus and the kingdom more seriously, but never did he take himself seriously.
Well, that's probably a good attitude to have, isn't it? We all take ourselves too seriously sometimes, don't we? All right, Pam, would you take the next one, please?
Bless you.
Who did you say?
Pam, would you
Bless
take the
you.
next one?
Okay. The apostles all loved and respected Nathanael, and he got along with them splendidly, excepting Judas Iscariot. Judas did not think Nathanael took his apostleship sufficiently seriously, and once had the temerity to go secretly to Jesus and lodge complaint against him. Jesus said, Judas, watch carefully your steps. Do not over magnify your office. Who of us is competent to judge his brother? It is not the Father's will that his children should partake only of the serious things of life. Let me repeat, I have come that my brethren in the flesh may have joy, gladness, and life more abundantly. And then Judas, and do well that which has been entrusted to you, but leave Nathanael your brother to give account of himself to God. And the memory of this, with that of many similar experiences, long lived in the self-deceiving heart of Judas Iscariot.
All
So he
right.
felt like he was being put down by Jesus.
Yeah, he felt wounded because Jesus
Uh,
did not agree
and
with
he
it.
felt that he was right.
Yeah, right. I know everything, right?
He
And
should
it's
have.
interesting. I mean, if anyone is qualified to judge, it would be Jesus.
It would have been Jesus. That's right.
But he's putting himself on a plane with us.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Diane.
Many times when Jesus was away on the mountain with Peter, James, and John, and things were becoming tense and tangled among the apostles, when even Andrew was in doubt about what to say to his disconsolate brethren, Nathanael would relieve the tension by a bit of philosophy or a flash of humor, good humor too.
Okay, so Nathaniel helped to lighten things up sometimes, right? Nath oh, Gary, you're in between me and Diane now, so your turn.
Okay, hold on a second. Got to open the bottle.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Nathaniel's duties was to look after the families of the 12. He was often absent from the apostolic councils, for when he had heard that sickness or anything out of the ordinary had happened to one of his charges, he lost no time in getting to that home. The 12 rested securely in the knowledge that their families' welfare was safe in the hands of Nathaniel.
Okay, so he made sure everybody's family was taken care of. Nathaniel most revered Jesus for his tolerance. He never grew weary of contemplating the broad-mindedness and generous sympathy of the Son of Man.
Hmm.
All right, Rodney, would you take the next one?
Yes. Nathaniel's father, Bartholomew, died shortly after Pentecost, after which this apostle went into Mesopotamia and India, proclaiming the glad tidings of the kingdom and baptizing believers. His brethren never knew what became of their one time philosopher, poet, and humorist. But he also was a great man in the kingdom and did much to spread his master's teachings, even though he did not participate in the organization of the subsequent Christian church. Nathaniel died in India.
And an interesting point here, many places when they list the 12 apostles, one of the 12 is listed as Bartholomew, not Nathaniel.
Oh,
Did y'all know that?
In the Old Testament, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
the New Testament, rather.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes he's referred to as Bartholomew because that was his father. Okay.
interesting.
Yeah.
It just made me think Jesus was named was Joshua ben Joseph,
Right.
Joseph being his father. And I wonder if Nathaniel was known as Nathaniel ben
And
Bar-
Bartholomew.
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 Yes,
I
that
would
would be
think
correct.
so.
Yeah,
And
that
maybe
would be
that
correct.
contributes to the confusion.
Yeah. All right, Pam, would you take the next one?
Matthew Levi. Matthew, the seventh apostle, was chosen by Andrew. Matthew belonged to a family of tax gatherers or publicans, but was himself a customs collector in Capernaum, where he lived. He was 31 years old and married and had 4 children. He was a man of moderate wealth, the only one of any means belonging to the apostolic court. He was a good businessman, a good social mixer, and was gifted with the ability to make friends and to get along smoothly with a great variety of people.
Okay, and a side note on this, sometimes Matthew's referred to as a physician. Did y'all know that?
Are
No,
you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know
it does
why.
ring a bell.
Because he was a tax collector. He wasn't a physician.
I know they
You know,
said he was a publican.
that may be kind of like a whitewashing of his occupation, because tax collectors were not held in good vein.
Not at all. Not at all. Socialists and publicans, they called them publicans and sinners, right? All right. So thought that was a little interesting side note. And there's a little picture of him. All right. Diane.
Andrew appointed Matthew the financial representative of the apostles. In a way, he was the physical agent and publicity spokesman for the apostolic organization. He was a keen judge of human nature and a very efficient protagonist. He is a propagandist. He is a personality difficult to visualize, but he was a very earnest disciple and an increasing believer in the mission of Jesus and in the certainty of the kingdom. Jesus never gave Levi a nickname, but his fellow apostles commonly referred to him as the money getter.
Money getter.
You're muted.
Yeah, would you take the next one, Gary?
Yeah, Levi's strong point was his wholehearted devotion to the cause, that he, a publican, had been taken in by Jesus and his apostles was the cause for overwhelming gratitude on the part of the former revenue collector. However, it was required some little time for the rest of the apostles, especially Simon Zealots and Judas Iscariot, to become reconciled to the publicans' presence in their midst. Matthew's weakness was his short-sighted and materialistic view of life. But in all these matters, he made great progress as the months went by. He, of course, had to be absent from many of the most precious seasons of instruction, as it was his duty to keep the treasury replenished.
So he was busy a lot trying to keep the money coming in for the apostles to stay on the road, right? It was the master's forgiving disposition that Matthew most appreciated. He would never cease to recount that faith only was necessary in the business of finding God. He always liked to speak of the kingdom as this business of finding God. All right. Rodney.
Though Matthew was a man with a past, he gave an excellent account of himself, and as time went on, his associates became proud of the publican's performances. He was one of the apostles who made extensive notes on the sayings of Jesus, and these notes were used as the basis of Isidore's subsequent narrative of the sayings and doings of Jesus, which has become known as the Gospel according to Matthew.
Okay, so Isidore penned the sayings that Matthew had written down to create the Gospel of Jesus according to Matthew. Okay, and that's how Matthew's name got on that gospel. All right. Pam, would you take the next one?
The great and useful life of Matthew, the businessman, the customs collector of Capernaum, has been the means of leading thousands upon thousands of other businessmen, public officials, and politicians down through the subsequent ages, also to hear that engaging voice of the Master saying, "Follow me." Matthew really was a shrewd politician, but he was intensely loyal to Jesus and supremely devoted to the task of seeing that the messengers of the coming kingdom were adequately financed.
Many times he used his own money for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Diane.
The presence of Matthew among the 12 was the means of keeping the doors of the kingdom wide open to a host of downhearted and outcast souls who had regarded themselves as long since without the bounds of religious consolation. Outcasts and despairing men and women flocked to hear Jesus, and he never turned one away.
So he took all sorts of people all the time, didn't he? Okay, Gary, would you take the next one?
Matthew received freely tendered offerings from believing disciples and the immediate auditors. I've got a mental blank. Auditors
Yes, that's
of
correct.
the master's teaching, but he never openly solicited funds from the multitudes. He did all his financial work in a quiet and personal way and raised most of the money among the more substantial class of interested believers. He gave practically the whole of his modest fortune to the work of the master and his apostles. But he never knew, but they never knew of his generosity, save Jesus, who knew all about it. Matthew hesitated openly to contribute to the apostles' funds for fear that Jesus and his associates might regard his money as being tainted. So he gave much in the name of other believers. During the earlier months, when Matthew knew his presence among them was more or less on a trial, he was strongly tempted to let them know that his funds often supplied them with their daily bread, but he did not yield. When evidence of the disdain of the publicans would become manifest, Levi would burn to reveal to them his generosity, but always he managed to keep still.
So he wanted to tell them, but he didn't because he felt like
For
it.
him.
Who was Levi burned to tell him what? You see the difference? Go back one.
Yeah, yeah. Levi is Matthew. His name was Matthew Levi.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I wish
Okay.
they would have done that. I'll have to write him an email.
Okay. All right. I'm up next, I guess. When the funds for the week were short of the estimated requirements, Levi would often draw heavily upon his own personal resources. Also, sometimes when he became greatly interested in Jesus's teachings, he preferred to remain and hear the instruction, even though he knew he must personally make up for his failure to solicit the necessary funds. But Levi did so wish that Jesus might know that much of the money came from his pocket. He little realized that the master knew all about it. The apostles all died without knowing that Matthew was their benefactor to such an extent that when he went forth to proclaim the gospel of the kingdom after the beginning of the persecution, he was practically penniless.
Mm.
So he gave it everything, right? All right. Pam. No, Rodney.
Yes. When these persecutions caused the believers to forsake Jerusalem, Matthew journeyed north, preaching the gospel of the kingdom and baptizing believers. He was lost to the knowledge of his former apostolic associates, but on he went, preaching and baptizing through Syria, Cappadocia,
Cappadocia.
Cappadocia, Galatia, Bithynia, and Thrace. And it was in Thrace at
A little bit
Lysimachia
tongue-tied, maybe.
that certain unbelieving Jews conspired with the Roman soldiers to encompass his death. And this regenerated publican died triumph in the faith of a salvation he had so surely learned from the teachings of the Master during his recent sojourn on earth.
So
Wow.
he kept to his faith, didn't he, all the way through this? All
Mm.
right. Pam, would you take the next one?
Thomas Didymus. Thomas was the eighth apostle, and he was chosen by Philip. In later times, he was in later times he has become known as Doubting Thomas. but his fellow apostles hardly looked upon him as a chronic doubter. True, his was a logical, skeptical type of mind, but he had a form of courageous loyalty which forbade those who knew him intimately to regard him as a trifling skeptic.
Okay, so it's more in the modern times that he got to be known as Doubting Thomas, right? And that's from the New Testament. Okay.
You're up, Roger.
No, me.
I
When
think
Thomas, excuse me,
isn't it Roger?
Oh,
when
I don't-
Thomas when Thomas joined the apostles, he was 29 years old, was married, and had 4 children. Formerly, he had been a carpenter and stonemason, but latterly he had become a fisherman and resided at Tashia, situated on the west bank of the Jordan, where it flows out of the Sea of Galilee. And it was regarded as the leading citizen of this little village. He had little education, but he possessed a keen reasoning mind and was the son of excellent parents who lived at Tiberias. Thomas had the one truly analytical mind of the 12. He was the real scientist of the apostolic group.
you're muted, Roger.
He had a very good mind that worked well for him. How does these long, little bitty paragraphs always come out with Gary?
He's got better eyesight.
I guess so. Gary, you went.
I have two sets of lenses in my eye, so I'm paying for them, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Excuse me. The early home life of Thomas had been unfortunate. His parents were not altogether happy in their married life, and this was reflected in Thomas's adult experience. He grew up having a very disagreeable and quarrelsome disposition. Even his wife was glad to see him join the apostles. She was relieved by the thought she was relieved by the thought that her pessimistic husband would be away from home most of the time. Thomas also had a streak of suspicion, which made it very difficult to get along peacefully with him. Peter was very much upset by Thomas at first, complaining to his brother Andrew that Thomas was mean, ugly, and always suspicious. But But the better his associates knew Thomas, the more they liked him. They found he was superbly honest and unflinchingly loyal. He was perfectly sincere and unquestionably truthful. But he was a natural born fault finder and had grown up to become a real pessimist. His analytical mind had become cursed with suspicion. He was rapidly losing faith in his fellow men when he became associated with the 12 and thus came in contact with the noble character of Jesus. This association with the master became at once a transform. Let me start over again. This association with the master began a once to transform Thomas's whole disposition and to effect great changes in his mental reaction to his fellow men.
So just being around Jesus, he changed his attitude, didn't he?
Saved
Mhm.
his life.
Yeah.
His wife
Tom-
was beat him up.
Yeah. Thomas's great strength was his superb analytical mind, coupled with his unflinching courage when he had once made up his mind. His great weakness was his suspicious doubting, which he never fully overcome throughout his whole lifetime in the flesh. So he was always suspicious about folks, right? Rodney, would you take the next?
In the organization of the 12, Thomas was assigned to arrange and manage the itinerary, and he was an able director of the work and movements of the apostolic corps. He was a good executive, an excellent businessman, but he was handicapped by his many moods. He was one man one day and another man the next. He was inclined toward melancholic brooding when he joined the apostles, but contact with Jesus and the apostles largely cured him of this morbid introspection.
He probably couldn't hang around guys like them that were positive about everything most of the time and hang on to that, could they?
Yeah.
All right. Pam, would you take the next one, please?
Jesus enjoyed Thomas very much and had many long personal talks with him. His presence among the apostles was a great comfort to all honest doubters and encouraged many troubled minds to come into the kingdom, even if they could not wholly understand everything about the spiritual and philosophic phases of Jesus. Thomas's membership in the 12 was a standing declaration that Jesus loved even honest doubters.
There you go. Accepted everyone, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
The other apostles held Jesus in reverence because of some special and outstanding trait of his replete personality. But Thomas referred his masters because of his superbly balanced character. Increasingly, Thomas admired and honored one who was so lovely, merciful, yet so inflexibly just and fair, so firm, but never obstinate, so calm, but never indifferent, so helpful and so sympathetic, but never meddlesome or dictation. Gosh.
Dictatorial.
Okay, no, sounds good. So strong, but at the same time, so gentle, so positive, but never rough or rude, so tender, but never vacillating, so pure and innocent, but at the same time, so virile and aggressive and forceful, so truly courageous, but never rash or foolhardy, such a lover of nature, but so free from all tendency to revere nature, so humorous and so playful, but so free from levity and frivolity. It was this matchful symmetry of personality that so charmed Thomas. He probably enjoyed the highest intellectual understanding and personality appreciation of Jesus of any of the 12.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting because
Very descriptive.
It is because in mind, the way he thought of things, he probably understood Jesus better than any of them, what they're saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Gary, would you take the next one?
In the Council of the 12, Thomas was in the councils of the 12, Thomas was always cautious, advocating a policy of safety first. But if his conservatism was voted down or overruled, he was always the first fearless to move out in execution of the program decided upon. Again and again would he stand out against some project as being foolhardy and presumptuous. He would debate to the bitter end, but when Andrew would put the proposition to a vote, and after the 12 would elect to do that which he had so strenuously opposed, Thomas was the first to say, "Let's go." He was a good loser. Okay. He did not hold grudges nor nurse wounded feelings. Time and again did he oppose letting Jesus expose himself to the danger. But when the master would decide to take such risks, always was it Thomas who rallied the apostles with his courageous words, Come on, comrades. Let's go and die with him.
Yep.
So if he would literally put himself aside and say, let's go. If he's going to die, we're going to die with him. All right. Let's see. I'm up next. Thomas was in some respects like Philip. He also wanted to be shown, but his outward expressions of doubt were based on entirely different intellectual operations. Thomas was analytical, not merely skeptical. As far as personal physical courage was concerned, he was one of the bravest among the 12. Right. Rod.
Thomas had some very bad days. He was blue and downcast at times. The loss of his twin sister when he was 9 years old had occasioned him much youthful sorrow and had added to his temperamental problems of later life. When Thomas would become despondent, sometimes it was Nathaniel who helped him to recover, sometimes Peter, and not infrequently one of the Alphaeus twins. When he was most depressed, unfortunately, he always tried to avoid coming into direct contact with Jesus. But the Master knew all about this and had an understanding sympathy for this apostle when he was thus afflicted with depression and harassed by doubts.
So those of you who are depressed and have doubts, Jesus understands. He's been there, right? All right, Pam, would you take the next one?
Sometimes Thomas would get permission from Andrew to go off by himself for a day or two. But he soon learned that such a course was not wise. He early found that it was best when he was downhearted to stick close to his work and to remain near his associates. But no matter what happened in his emotional life, he kept right on being an apostle. When the time actually came to move forward, it was always Thomas who said, "Let's go."
Man of action, right? All right, Diane.
Thomas is a great example of a human being who has doubts, faces them, and wins. He had a great mind. He was so, I'm sorry, he was no carping critic. He was a logical thinker. He was the acid test of Jesus and his fellow apostles. If Jesus and his work had not been genuine, it could not have held a man like Thomas from the start to the finish. He had a keen and sure sense of fact. At the first appearance of fraud or deception, Thomas would have forsaken them all. Scientists may not fully understand all about Jesus and his work on earth, but there lived and worked with the Master and his human associates a man whose mind was that of a true scientist. Thomas Didymus, and he believed in Jesus of Nazareth.
Okay, so Thomas had a scientific type mind, and he stuck right in there with Jesus, just as scientists can today. You know, it's really funny. I was working on chapter 18 this morning after I got done with the shorts, and I did my version of chapter 18. Y'all know I've been doing 3 versions of each one of these chapters, one with myself. I write the scripts for all of them, but I have one for myself, one for 2 people, a man and a woman, and one for an individual that's very short. But I use an artificial voice for that one too. But during that period of time this morning, as I was going through this, the one I did of myself today for chapter 18, I was talking about how Jesus's during his period of time when Emmanuel was giving him instructions and that sort of thing. It showed the perfect synchrony of Jesus's personality with doing the will of God regardless of how difficult, he knew the upcoming bestowal of his life. And this is what we're talking about right here, right? So after he became fully aware of his divinity, after the baptism, Jesus chose to go on knowing how difficult it was going to be for the next 3.5, 4 years, teaching and living with his apostles and stuff, because these men during this period of time weren't geniuses by no stretch of the imagination, right? They were common folk, and Jesus knew they were common folk. And so Jesus knew during his charges from Emmanuel that what he was about to do was not going to be an easy task by any stretch of the imagination, because he had to bring his concepts, his teaching, everything he did down to the level of a human being. And he had lived 1 billion years before this and knew everything about everything, you know? Could you imagine being a super intelligent genius and then have to come back and teach people that are so basic? We're just above the monkeys, really. You think about it. So think of the love that Jesus must have had for human beings to be able to bring himself down to this level that he could teach everyone. And it talks about here about Thomas Didymus being a scientist. This is the type of mind that was on the higher scales, what they're talking about. Not super intelligent, but pretty intelligent. Okay? All right. Gary, would you take the next one?
Thomas had a trying time during the days of the trial and crucifixion. He was for a season in the depths of despair, but he rallied his courage, stuck to the apostles, and when was present with them to welcome Jesus on the Sea of Galilee. For a while, he succumbed to his doubting depression and eventually rallied his faith and courage. He gave wise counsel to the apostles after Pentecost. And when persecution shattered the believers went to Cyprus, Crete, and North African coast and Sicily, preaching the glad tidings of the kingdom and baptizing believers. And Thomas continued preaching and baptizing until he was apprehended by the agents of the Roman government and was put to death in Malta. Just a few weeks before his death, he had begun the writings of the life and teachings of Jesus. Wasn't Jean from Malta?
Huh?
Wasn't Jean from Malta?
Gene.
Yes,
Uh,
Jane.
Jane, excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah, originally from Malta.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Did not know that.
Now,
Yeah.
All right. And there's Thomas. All right. 9 and 10, James and Judas Alphaeus. James and Judas, the sons of Alphaeus, the twin fishermen living near Caressa, were the 9th and 10th apostles and were chosen by James and John Zebedee. They were 26-year-old and married, James having 3 children and Judas 2. Notice how many of these apostles had kids and wives, right?
mm-hmm.
You don't think about that much, do you? Rodney, would you take the next one?
There is not much to be said about these two commonplace fisher folk. They loved their master, and Jesus loved them, but they never interrupted his discourses with questions. They understood very little about the philosophical discussions or the theological debates of their fellow apostles, but they rejoiced to find themselves numbered among such a group of mighty men. These two men were almost identical in personal appearance. mental characteristics, and extent of spiritual perception. What may be said of one should be recorded of the other.
You can imagine them trying to understand the seven absolutes when you
Didn't their mother come to Jesus and ask them if her sons could sit on
No,
the right side of him?
No.
that was John and James,
Yeah, it was
Zebedee's,
John and Jed. Yeah, the
Salome.
Zebedee brothers. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Pam, would you take the next one?
Andrew assigned them to the work of policing the multitudes. They were the chief ushers of the preaching hours and, in fact, the general servants and errand boys of the 12. They helped Philip with the supplies. They carried money to the families of Nathanael, and always were they ready to lend a helping hand to any one of the apostles.
So they were the chief ushers most of the time, right?
Mm. And they were the youngest of the apostles?
Yeah. Mm.
The multitudes of the common people were greatly encouraged to find two like themselves honored with places among the apostles. By their very acceptance as apostles, these metacore twins,
Mediocre.
mediocre, mediocre twins were the means of bringing a host of faint-hearted believers into the kingdom. And two, the common people took more kindly to the idea of being directed and managed by official ushers who were very much like themselves.
Who weren't geniuses, right? That's what they're getting at. Gary, would you take the next one?
James and Judas, who were also called Thaddeus and
Libius.
Libius, had neither strong points nor weak points. The nicknames given them by the disciples were good-natured designations of mediocrity. They were the least of all the apostles. They knew it and felt cheerful about it.
So it didn't bother them, right?
Yeah,
That they were
they
that
were
way.
glad to be there.
Yeah,
In other words, they enjoyed the dunce cap.
that's right. James Alfie especially loved Jesus because of the master's simplicity. These twins could not comprehend the mind of Jesus, but they did grasp the sympathetic bond between themselves and the heart of their master. Their minds were not of a high order. They might even reverently be called stupid, but they had a real experience in the spiritual natures. They believed in Jesus and they were the sons of God and fellows of the kingdom. So all part types of beings will be accepted into the kingdom. Rodney.
Roger,
Yeah.
when we get to the mansion worlds, if you happen to be stupid on this first world, it's not going to carry over.
No.
Hope not.
No, because you'll get a brand new
Mine.
Urantia brain that is just like everybody else's, right? So the stupidness of this world will be made up pretty quickly in that first mansion world. But think of it this way, Rodney, because when we get to the first mansion world, there's going to be so many billions of people that we would consider stupid in this life, right? Because look at how many, the reason I know this is this. Look at how long it's taken very few people to find this revelation and to determine the truth of it. Okay. So, and to me, that is stupid. I mean, it really is because God the Father and Jesus, our local universe, Mother Spirit, everyone brought this revelation to us to enhance our religious life, didn't they? To make us understand. And look how few people that are still reading and understanding the book. And even worse is how many people have delved into the book and have not tried to take the time to understand it hardly at all, right?
I can answer that one. They lack the curiosity and the inquisitive and the desire to understand and find truth.
Yeah, in
Hmm.
spiritual
I
things.
think you could, and I don't know, but if you want to take a poll, I would imagine that each and every one of us is basically a truth seeker.
Yes. Yeah. You have to be, or you wouldn't be involved in this, right?
I think
Of
you're right.
course.
Yeah, that's
You're a
just what it is. Right. Rodney, would you take the next one?
Yes. Hey, Coco. Judas Alphaeus was drawn toward Jesus because of the Master's unostentatious humility. Such humility linked with such personal dignity made a great appeal to Judas. The fact that Jesus would always enjoin silence regarding his unusual acts made a great impression on this simple child of nature.
Okay, so both of these twins were pretty simple, right? Okay, Pam, would you take the next?
Mhm. The twins were good-natured, simple-minded helpers, and everybody loved them. Jesus welcomed these young men of one talent to positions of honor on his personal staff in the kingdom because there are untold millions of other such simple and fear-ridden souls on the worlds of space whom he likewise wishes to welcome into active and believing fellowship with himself and his outpoured saint spirit of
Spirit of
truth.
truth. Yes.
Jesus does not look down upon littleness, only upon evil and sin. James and Judas were little, but they were also faithful. They were simple and ignorant, but they were also big-hearted, kind, and generous.
Okay, so all you geniuses out there who think you know everything and you think you're too good to learn about your spiritual life, look at these two simple individuals that are leaps and bounds ahead of you because they understand simple concepts of spiritual truths, right?
It's true.
Look at it that way. All right. There's room for all of us everywhere. You ready to?
Did you?
And how gratefully proud were these humble men on the day when the master refused to accept a certain rich man as an evangelist unless he would sell his goods and help the poor. When the people heard this and beheld the twins among his counselors, they knew of a certainty that Jesus was no respecter of persons, but only a divine institution. The kingdom of heaven could ever have been built upon such a um, mediocre mediocre human foundation. Maybe I should
Oh,
read that
the
again.
riches did him no good, did they?
Uh,
The riches did him no good as a rich man, right? All right. Gary, would you take the next?
Only once or twice in all their association with Jesus did the twins venture to ask questions in public. Judas was once intrigued by asking Jesus a question when the master was had talked about revealing himself openly to the world. He felt a little disappointed that there were to be no more secrets among the 12, and he made bold to ask, "But, Master, would you do this? Do you, when you do thus declare yourself to the world, how will you favor us with special manifestations of our goodness?"
Hmm.
In other words, he still expected everything to be special among the apostles, didn't he?
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, a club.
Yeah, like a club, a closed club, right?
Secret handshake.
Secret handshake. There you go. The twins served faithfully until the end, until the dark days of trial, crucifixion, and despair. They never lost their heart faith in Jesus and saved John. They were the first to believe in his resurrection. But they could not comprehend the establishment of the kingdom. Soon after their master was crucified, they returned to their family in nets. Their work was done. They had not the ability to go in the more complex battles of the kingdom, but they lived and died conscious of having been honored and blessed with 4 years of close and personal association with the Son of God and the sovereign maker of the universe, because they didn't have the equipment to go on as evangelists, did they?
Yeah.
So, okay. Next time we will talk about Simon Zelotes and Simon the Zealot. Okay, so let's stop the share and we'll do our prayer. I don't even have our prayer still up. Let me get it back up.
By the way, Gary, your voice
Can't
is
find
so
it.
clear
There
now.
it
I don't
goes.
know what was happening before.
What's
Yeah.
that?
You're coming
Your
in good
voice
tonight.
sounds so clear.
Okay. I can't hear anybody either for some reason.
I don't know.
Okay, here we go. Share. Pam, would you like to read our prayer tonight?
Sure. Prayer of acceptance.
I can't hear you, Pam.
Pardon?
No.
I can hear
Pardon?
her.
You hear her?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you hear her?
Yes.
Okay, I lost my sound completely.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead and do it.
Prayer of acceptance. I believe that God is my paradise Father,
Let
and
me know
that
when she's done.
by faith am I saved. No
I don't know why I
sacrifice
can't hear. I
necessary.
lost my sound all the way
By the
around.
same faith, I became a child of God and know that all men and women are my brothers and sisters. We know the Son of God, the sovereign of our universe of Nebadon, as Christ Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. By allowing the will of God to become my will, I will someday stand in the presence of the Paradise Father. In the name of Christ Michael, Jesus of Nazareth, Amen.
Oh, man.
Amen. And thank you everyone at home for joining us tonight. I can't hear anybody, so I will close it off tonight.
Thank
It
you,
must be
Roger.
time for me to shut
Diane,
up,
good
right? Good night, everybody. I love you guys, and I will see you next time. All right.
Good
Okay.
night.
Right.
All right.
See you
Bye-bye.
Thursday.
Okey-dokey.